Good morning, happy Wednesday, and welcome to our final episode of Career Ed Talks for Season 2. I'll do a quick screen share. My name is Kelly Thawley. I'm the Career Specialist for the School District of Lee County in the Career and Technical Education Department. And this is part of our Career Ed Talks, this virtual series teaching different career skills. In previous years, last year, we covered different career fields. This year, we are covering various soft skills that would help you find employment or further your professional development. So we've had, you can see the topics we've covered, and then today is resumes and interviews. So it's going to be a little bit different than the previous weeks because we're going to be talking about some tips and tricks, things to keep in mind. Students specifically revolving around how to organize, what to include, what to put in your resume, what they should look like, maybe what they shouldn't look like, and then also some interview skills and things to keep in mind and maybe some things to think about before you go in for that interview. We'll share a couple of great resources as well. If you're interested in any of the previous episodes from this season or from last season, you can get into our YouTube channel. And that is on bit.ly/Lee Career Ed Talks. I will also do a very quick screen share of that so that you can see what it looks like when you get to the site. So it is our adult and career education playlists are all down here. We have career videos. We have different interests and offerings, and then our Career Ed Talks from Season 1 and Season 2. All right, well, with that, we'll go ahead and get started for today. So thank you so much to all of the panelists who are on here. We'll give a quick introduction and then we'll start right in by asking them some questions. We have with us today Melissa Johnson. She is the Recruitment Coordinator in the HR department for the School District of Lee County. So thank you, Melissa, for joining us. We also have Judy Link. She was a university medical administrator, and now she is enjoying her life after employment in her retirement. And thank you for being here. Josh Ward is the Director of Student Services for Keiser University, and he has some great resources that we'll share with you, including his own YouTube channel. So thank you all for being here today. We're just going to take about 45 minutes to an hour to chat about some resume tips, some interview tips, but also learn a little bit about each of you and your backgrounds, because we've found through these series that not only do the students want to learn about the skills, but they're also very interested in hearing about your backgrounds and how you got into the career that you were in. And it's good for them to hear different pathways. So we'll start with the very first question, which is just, what did you study? Where did you study, and what degrees or certifications do you have? So how did you how did you get started? So let's start with Melissa.
Thank you, Kelly. My name is Melissa Johnson, and I am the Coordinator of Recruitment in HR for the School District of Lee County. I actually grew up in Akron, Ohio, and I got a bachelor's degree from the University of Toledo in middle childhood education, English language arts, and reading. I could not get a teaching job in Ohio at the time, so I ventured down to Florida where I had family. And I taught for about 4 years before getting a master's degree in media design and technology and education from Full Sail University. I then jumped on the technology bandwagon. I love technology and I love being creative. So I then taught high school digital design, web development, and coding courses. And then from there, I just found myself working at the district office in career and technical education. So the same role that Kelly has right now. And I was supporting teachers. I've found throughout my career that I love helping people. So I loved helping students, but I loved also helping my peers. So I was at a supporting role, supporting teachers in all the various career clusters. And then recently, I say recently, but it's been about 2.5 years now, I have been working in HR in the recruiting department. This job opened up and I thought, wow, this could be a great opportunity for me to grow, learn more how the district organization is run. And the fact that I am a former teacher, I understand, where these kids are going and going through these programs. at our local colleges and universities and where I can get them today. So I love my job. It's exciting. And that's just a little bit about my background and my certifications.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And OHIO, fellow Ohioan.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks. Let's go over to Judy. Same question. What and where did you study? What degree and certifications do you have? Kind of how did you get your start?
My start was very different than the former person. I am self-taught. I wanted to get a college degree, but I couldn't afford going to college, so I hired in at a university, and I learned everything I could at that university. And I kept getting promoted and promoted and promoted, and finally ended up as manager and boss of about 275 people in a department. I did not finish my degree till I was in my 50s. And unfortunately for me, getting a degree did not involve any associated pay raise, because I was already at the top level. And I think people can achieve that even without a degree, but much more difficult now. During the 70s and 80s, it was easier to obtain higher positions because a lot of folks didn't have college degrees. I am glad I finished my degree. It afforded me a different opportunity because I could transfer to different universities. So from Detroit, I went to UCLA in California, and then University of California, Irvine. And I took a lot of master's classes after I finished my degree, and I became a certified mediator. I took every year, I took at least 4 or 5 classes just to keep up with what was going on in the world and business and new ways of doing things. And I was involved obviously a lot in purchasing and HR, grants and contracts. I ran a clinic. So life is pretty diverse at that type of level. And it can be a lucrative career pathway for those who want to pursue it. And you get wonderful benefits in an academic and state level. So that's kind of my story.
Thank you so much. Josh, down to you. Same question.
Thank you. So I'm Josh Ward. I'm a director of student services at Keiser University. I earned my bachelor's degree actually in business management at Delaware State University. And I started off working in management at a company. But even doing that, as much as I love business, I always found myself taking on employees, whether they were new or they had been there a while. If they had a desire to grow, to get better, and I could help them with that, that was me. Like, that is where I found the most fulfillment. So between that and then getting in on the hiring process and doing a lot of interviewing things, I started seeing a trend as to where my career was going until I just kind of fell into an opportunity at a different university, becoming a career coach, associate director of career services. And I've done that for the last 8 years, and I absolutely love it. Just coaching students on interviewing and resumes and basically everything that we'll be going over today. I didn't necessarily foresee myself doing this coming out of college. But through the process of just learning what gives you fulfillment, what you enjoy, what you're good at, and your strengths, once the opportunity came, I jumped at it, and I've loved my job ever since. So I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you. Thanks to all of our panelists for sharing a little bit and for being here. I think you all touched on very good points. It seems like you have all found what your passion was, and you've kind of worked through different situations where you've learned that about yourselves. And now you're all in a position where you enjoy what you're doing and you're passionate about what you're doing. And ultimately, that's the goal. And that's what we want our students to also be able to do through this whole learning process. What kind of made you choose your career? So why do you think that you went into this? Was it a mentor, a teacher that you had in your past, or was it just something that you always felt like you were meant to do? We'll start with Judy for this question.
You know what, my career path was not my original passion. I thought I was going to be an interpreter. I was going to travel the world, and I majored in Spanish and German. So for me to go back to school, and as I said, I attended school on and off. It just fell into my lap. And I didn't realize the opportunities that exist at a university level and at medical centers. There was just so many options to choose from, and I'm glad I chose the administrative path. And I do have a degree in business management ultimately. But it's but I became very passionate once I was in the position because I love working with people, and you have to be extremely social to be a good manager.
Thank you. Josh, why you explained a little bit, but can you elaborate maybe on why you are in this career pathway? And then Melissa, you can follow up.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was saying, when I worked in business, I was taking on employees, coworkers, anybody who wanted to get better. If I could help them, I absolutely took that opportunity. It was one of those things where I didn't even realize that a career coach in a university was a possibility. It was never necessarily a passion of mine. Honestly, my passion to this day is wild animals. Never really took that direction. But I believe a lot of people say you should live or work your passions, I think as long as you enjoy your job, if you get fulfillment from what you're doing, that's the big thing. So one of my coworkers actually who saw what I enjoy, what I was doing at my work, they found the opportunity and actually came to me with it and said, we love having you here, but this kind of seems right up your alley if you're interested. Which just shows if you network enough, if you build those relationships and you look out for people, it comes full circle. So I was extremely fortunate that I had those connections with the people that I did work with, that when they saw the opportunity and thought I would be a good fit, they presented it to me. And as fate would have it, like I said, I jumped at it, and that's where I've been.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Josh. So the position I'm in right now really fell in my lap as well. I never considered HR, when I was getting my bachelor's degree or my master's degree. I always thought I was going to be in the classroom, then maybe fast forward, years down the road and become an administrator at a school. So this also fell in my lap because I was here working at the district office, working in career and tech ed, and this position posted recruitment coordinator. And thank goodness for my prior supervisor, because she encouraged me to do this. She could have been selfish and said, no, I want to keep you here. But she really did encourage me to take that leap of faith and go for it. I feel very blessed that I was selected to do this position. And again, I never really considered this as a future career path when I was younger, but as I've learned that I like to help others, and I get to help now all the schools with their hiring, and I also get to help the local colleges and universities with their internship placements. So I call them my kids, but they're not really my kids. But the local interns I get to work with and watch them go through their field experiences and then help them get a job when they're done. Just makes me very happy at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you all. And I think you all kind of touched on making those connections and networking. And Melissa, yours was your prior boss, which is awesome. And shows that, that was a very good work environment. And that's what you want. You want somebody who's going to pick up on your strengths and provide you with opportunities to get better, or to maybe find something that fits a little bit more in line with what makes you fulfilled. So always take those opportunities to learn something. Networking plays a big part of it. So any opportunity that you have to meet new people, even if it's not something you're comfortable with, push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit to make those connections, because you never know when it could help down the road and put you in a position where it's, an opportunity that you didn't even think about when you were in college. So thank you all for sharing that. Let's go ahead and get into our skill, which is resume writing and interview skills. Let's start with the resume, because that's what has to come first. So when students are thinking about a resume, the first thing they think of is organization. So what do you think what are some options for organizing your resume? Is there one way that's better than another? Have you, maybe Melissa, you can even touch on this in HR. Have you seen some interesting resumes that have really caught your eye? Especially right now where everybody is hiring, how do you stand out based on a piece of paper? So we'll start with that question, and I'll throw it over to Melissa to start.
So I think a hot topic right now is, do you put your picture on a resume or not? I don't encourage you to put your picture on a resume unless you're trying to, get a role in a movie, or, if you want to be famous, but that's inappropriate for resumes nowadays. Yes, I think especially for this target audience for high school kids, they could easily minimize their resume to one page. When you have a resume that's 3 to 4 pages long, that's just too much information. We want to get to the point. So especially for this audience, if they could limit their resume to one page, I'd highly, encourage that. I have a non-example if you would like for me to share that, Kelly, right now. Okay. This is one I've received years ago. I think it's a template probably floating somewhere off, on the internet. And I've changed it to include my personal information, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. Do you guys see a Google Doc?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So this is one that I've seen just every so often. I think we're trying to get fancy and trying to get organized, but this is not very clear for a hiring manager to look at. First off, I see the contact information is not even near the candidate's name at the top. So it's hard to find that contact information. But if you can even look further at the contact information, please be professional. Okay. So if you're going to use an email, think about, the employers, how they're going to want to, they're going to be typing in that email address. And if it's ilovetacos24@aol.com, completely inappropriate. Okay. You want to make sure you're using a professional email, typically with your first and last name of some sort. Again, just the Twitter with, I love tacos, or, even the little, just even the icons. It's fancy, yes, but it's also, very unorganized, and it's not near the name at the top of the page. Also, too, if you look in the experience section, we even spacing after those, those colons, and just the listing of information. It's not bulleted. It's very wordy. I don't like the fact that the most recent experience is listed at the bottom. That needs to be at the top of the page. Again, we're even moving to a second page just because it was run off on this document. So just very poorly organized. And I just encourage, everyone to think about, just spacing, the wording, bullets, just be nice and organized. I'd be happy to show a better example. And I'm going to be very honest, I'm so picky. I don't even think this is a better example. I don't love resumes in general because sometimes I get overwhelmed. But let me show you another example here. Do you guys see a PDF? No? Okay, hold on a second.
No, we still see the other one.
Okay, hold on a second. And again, I don't love this one either, but it gets everything on one page. Okay, do you see a PDF now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess we were trying to be a little creative, adding the purple and so forth. That's fine. I do love that everything's on one page. It is chronological. You can see with experience. At the University of Florida, we see the most present experience there at the top. I do like, this is someone who's coming in to be a teacher. So we are looking for certain items. We want to see, teacher certification, their skills, involvement. As a hiring principal, these are the things they're looking for. Contact information is at the top. Again, you're going to laugh. I looked at so many resumes before presenting one to you today, and I just don't love all of them. Like, I'm very picky. I want it to be very clear and organized. And this one was the most clear and organized for me to showcase. Again, I like easy contact information at the top, chronological. Definitely, highlight those skills and award certifications that your hiring manager would be looking at. And also don't be afraid to change your resume for each of the jobs that you're applying for, because some of your skills and strengths in one resume may not, apply to a different job you're applying to. So your resume needs to be a working document, a living, breathing document, because everything you put in one resume may not apply to a job you're applying to down the road. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to stop. I'm on my soapbox. I'll let Mr. Ward or Ms. Link share.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And thanks for showing us
You're
actual
welcome.
examples. That definitely helps. Let's go to Josh. If you want to talk about resume organization, if you have examples, feel free.
Sure. So I agree with everything that has been said already, and I'll just kind of piggyback off that. Firstly, to the point of being fancy and everything, I would go as far as to say, do not use pre-made templates from Microsoft Word. Don't use pre-made templates from the internet. Anything that could have text boxes or symbols or objects, avoid. The most simple way to explain it is that companies these days will use a software to sift through resumes looking for keywords. And that software has a very hard time reading any kind of pre-made structures. So start your resume from scratch. You can try to make it look like one of those, but if you like, but keep it simple, keep it plain, let the value that you present for that specific job be the focus of your resume. I want to look at your resume and think, wow, this person is very qualified. Not, wow, that's very fancy and pretty. Like, that doesn't help me, right? Unless you're going for graphic design, then it's a different conversation, but the focus needs to be on the value. And to that point, when you're organizing your resume, when you're putting information on there, obviously you'll always start with your name and your contact information, but after that, order the content, the sections on your resume based on what's most valuable for the job that you're applying to. I'm sure that all of you have once clicked on a link to an article that you wanted to read. And before you ever even got to the article you wanted, you had to go through like 2 or 3 ads before you can even get to it. And a lot of times you give up. You're like, you know what? I'm not going to keep clicking through this to get to the article I want. Well, if the top of your resume has information that's not relevant to the job, that person working for the company probably won't go through your whole resume to get to what's valuable. So start off with what is most valuable. If you have work experience directly related to the job that you're applying for, that should be towards the top of your resume, right? But if you don't, yet you're getting a degree in that field, well, then your education should be ahead of your work experience. Whatever's most related, put that towards the top and then work your sections downward. I can share an example of my resume personally. Now, I will admit I'm a very wordy writer, okay? But I want to show this just for structure more than anything else. Actually, it looks like I'm not able to share my screen, which is okay.
There you go. Now you
Again,
should. Now you should.
Okay. All right.
I had to make you a co-host.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, I'm hoping that the PDF is up there at this point.
Yes.
Okay. Again, very wordy writer. I'm the first one to admit that, but you'll see it starts with my name. The first section right here is just a professional summary. That is a movie preview of me as a candidate based on the job I'm applying for. Then I go accomplishments, recognitions, where all the bullet points in there are based again on the job I'm applying for. But really what I want to point out is you notice my resume is fairly plain. There aren't columns, there aren't colors. It is just text, distinguishable sections, and the information that I would like them to have. So my advice, keep it simple, put the most valuable information towards the top. Don't be as wordy as me, but really sell yourself, your skills, anything that you feel like they need to know, make sure it's on there and make sure it's set so that the software these companies use can read it. So that would be my biggest advice.
Thank you. Good advice. Let's go to Judy.
I have a bit of a different philosophy than the other 2 panelists. I believe in very plain. I think you should be succinct. When you have minimal experience, it is definitely a 1 page. When you are applying to other institutions where you may need to expand on your experience or what you've done, you need to, if it runs into 2 pages, so be it. but color is normally not something I would ever look at. I've had people submit a resume on pink paper, and people who did it on watermark paper, a very fancy letterhead, things that I thought, okay, what does this mean? Do you have higher standards? Are you looking for more money? You're going to spend a lot of money on a resume that I think you could compact and make look presentable and nice. Having a lot of words can be challenging, because if you have 100 resumes and you're trying to go through them quickly, I agree with Josh. You want to have your best experience first, and the things you've done relatable to that position. I always advise my employees that are on the job hunt, have several working resumes. And if you're going into academics, you would have an academic one. If you're going into the medical field, you have a different one. So those are just the quick tips that I have, but less is better in organization, and please make sure there's no typos in it.
Thank you. That's another good point, is have someone proofread it. Don't just go over it yourself, have someone look at it to make sure that you don't have any typos, and that it looks, organized in a way that would be easily readable for someone who's going to look at it very quickly and want to be able to pick out those points. What if I'm a high school student and I don't have any prior work experience? I'm applying for my first job. What types of information can I put on my resume? What should I put on my resume if this is my first job, or a first job in this field that I don't have any experience in? We'll start with Josh for this one.
I'm sorry, I didn't come through. Were you asking for me to start?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. Just want
Yeah,
to
they cut out then.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And oftentimes, even at the university I work at, I'll get students who don't have any work experience. So at that point, first, I would say this, and we may touch on this later, start trying to get experience now. Even if it's just volunteering somewhere, any kind of experience working in teams, working with people is going to help you at some point down the line. So if you don't have experience doing anything, start volunteering, start getting involved in school organizations, anything like that. Because ultimately, at least when you start, you can start with that kind of stuff on your resume. But with that said, kind of when I brought up mine, you can always start off with a professional summary, and that's 3 to 5 sentences without using I, me, or my, explaining why you are the ideal fit for the job you're applying for. You may not have the experience, but you may be the perfect person for it. If you're going for something in healthcare and you're incredibly compassionate and empathetic and things like that, let them know that. Your next section can be a summary of skills, and those skills can be tangible. They can be like hard skills. You can put in there your attentive to detail, your work ethic, things like that. Look at the job description. If there are things in the job description they're asking that you have knowledge about, and you do, and I'll use a very simple example, right? If they say they want somebody with Microsoft Word experience or knowing that, one of your skills in that section can be Microsoft Word, however they list it in the job description. So find things in the job description, whether they're traits, skills, knowledge, put those in your resume. Like if that calls to you, you're like, I'm that, or I can do that, or I know that, put it in your resume. Your education obviously will be one. And again, if you're part of any organizations, if you've volunteered at the school, anything like that, just start working on your resume. Ideally, you'd like to fill up the page, but without making it look too full. So if you have references, I'm not a fan of putting references on resumes, but if you look at your resume and it has half a page, but you have really great references, just put them at the bottom there to fill out that page. So there is content that you can use. And the last thing I would say, ask for help. Don't feel like you have to do this on your own. There are people out there willing to help. So try your best, then take it to the people you know that will be able to help you and work from there. But there's content you can put on there. Just base it on the job description.
Very good points. And I think that, yeah, exactly. Like if you're in sports and you are a team captain, that's going to show leadership skills. So kind of think a little bit, you might have to think a little outside of the box. If maybe you're the oldest child of 5 and you are taking care of your 4 siblings, you obviously have a lot of responsibility and probably a lot of problem solving skills, organizational skills. So think of how those can come into play as well on your resume. Melissa or Judy, do either of you have anything to add to that for our students that maybe don't have work experience?
I would echo Josh's sentiments. There are things like if you were in choir, or if you had been cutting your neighbor's lawns, or anything that you can think of to show that you are interested in doing extracurricular activities, or that you are willing in being a team member. And one of the things that we had talked about, many people work in a fast food industry that is a first job. And I don't remember the statistic offhand, but it was like a large percentage of us have worked at McDonald's. And I think just working as a team member there, I learned a lot of skills there, and just getting things done and clearing out the lunch crowd. So those things are helpful, and getting any type of experience is a good thing, especially in high school.
Great. Melissa, anything to add?
Judy and Josh really did a good job on hitting all of those points. Just to, I guess, piggyback and say, think about, what you're doing in school, whether if you're involved in an organization, if you're involved on an athletic team, any of those, positions where you're working, as a team, in a group, under leadership, think about, how you're involved and how you can include that experience on your resume. And like what Josh said, ask for help. I mean, there's no reason you should do this alone. There are counselors on school campuses. I know career coaches, there are career specialists in our high schools. Really utilize those individuals because they can help you.
I am also going to put, thank you, Melissa. I'm also going to put a resource right now in the chat. This is called getschooled.com. They have a ton of resources for getting ready for college, getting ready for career. But one of the things that they do offer is resume review for free. So you can send in your resume. They have a team of volunteers that will review it and give you pointers and send it back to you. So I will put that link in the chat so that students, you have that. Josh kind of talked on it a little bit. If you don't have the experiences, he mentioned getting involved and putting yourself out there. So what are some tips that you would give to students for building up those experiences and taking advantage of those opportunities? And I'll open this up to anyone.
Well, we all jumped right in there. My advice is to find opportunities of volunteering, going to the library, asking around. And I think you start building contacts just by making yourself known. And then people will say, hey, there's this person who came up to the library and they seem very organized and they're willing to do odd jobs. And that usually starts the ball rolling.
Yeah, and I mean, it can truly be anything. Because even if it's not, if you know what you want to do or have an idea of the field that you want to get into, the efforts that you put in don't necessarily have to be directly related to that. Customer service, working at a fast food place was touched on earlier. Trust and believe that customer service is universal. If you can work with the general public, you can do most jobs. Like, that shows patience and the ability to work with people, right? But even so, I mean, there's so many opportunities around here. There's beach cleanups. If you like being outdoors and the environment, right? If you're like me and you like animals, you can go volunteer at one of the shelters around here. If you have athletic programs at your high school and there are games and they need somebody to work at the ticket booths or to sell merchandise or volunteer set things, do all those things. Like, those are things that you can put on your resume, but also the point that was mentioned earlier, you're networking. You know, so many people didn't get into the job that they're in now because they found it. They got into it because they built a connection. That person ended up coming back to them full circle. Again, you never know who somebody is until it's too late. And that is from day one of life until, you know, the day we're gone. It's just build those relationships because they will help and come back. So any opportunity, if you enjoy something and you have a chance to go participate, put in your effort, put in your time, do it, because you can add those things to your resume.
Yeah, the key is making connections. I think, you know, the younger generation, they may be a little, you know, scared to ask for help or maybe even, you know, seek out opportunities, but they have opportunities at their fingertips if they just ask and, you know, make those connections, whether it be with their teachers, their neighbors, their friends' parents, at their church, again, with school clubs and in athletics, just an easy ask. They may find, oh, well, my parents shop, they need it cleaned on Sundays. You know, would you like to come in and clean the back, you know, the back office? Or, oh, I could really use a sitter on, you know, Wednesdays after school for my kids because I don't have any childcare. Just making those connections and starting those conversations is huge. And I don't think we've touched yet, but social media, you know, I know I'm in groups, you know, within my community, like people might post in search of someone to lay mulch in my front yard for my elderly mom. So, you know, utilizing those platforms as well, professionally, not unprofessionally. I think you can also really put yourself out there and you can gain, you know, insight on what is needed in the community and where you can.
Thank you, Melissa, and all of our panelists. Let's talk about cover letters. Are cover letters necessary? And what things should be mentioned in a cover letter that might not be in the resume itself? We'll start with Judy for this one.
I enjoyed the cover letters, and they're usually 3 paragraphs. One is an introduction. Hi, my name is Judy Link. I am interested in academic medicine, and just 1 or 2 lines. The middle part summarizes why my background and my qualifications would meet this job. And then the final sentence, I look forward to hearing from you, or the opportunity to interview or something of that sort. And I always, on all my cover letters, I always put a PS line. You can please contact me at the best method, whether you would prefer email or a phone call. And I always think in this day and age, putting your phone number and being available to talk to someone personally may give you that edge as opposed to an email response.
Thank you. Good point. Good point. Melissa, cover letters, what do you think?
So only being in this role for 2.5 years, I'll be honest, I don't see a lot of cover letters from teachers. Our online system, when they upload their application, it just really asks for a resume. You can't upload more than 1 document, but of course they can upload 1 document with their cover letter first, followed by their resume. I do see more of them for administrative positions. Again, it is a very nice personalized touch. I think it's nice to be able to read to see what the candidate is interested in, because it's really this is who I am, this is what I'm interested in doing, and here's how you can get a hold of me. Again, nice personalized touch. I don't see many of those in my position, but maybe Josh at where he's at with Keiser, he might see them more and have better advice for cover letters.
Yeah. No pressure. Thanks, Melissa. No, so I personally love cover letters. It's one of those things where if it's required, absolutely do it. If it is optional, I say still do it. But if you are going to do it, you have to do it well and do it right. Don't just put in half effort and give them something. You have to do it well, right? And the reason that I love cover letters is your resume is very black and white. It's these are my qualifications here. there's not really much about you as a person in there. Now, when I say you as a person, I'm not saying to get super personal in your cover letter. You know, I don't care that you have a pet turtle or that you drive this, you know, type of car or whatever. What I'm saying is if there is a reason that you are trying to do what you're trying to do, if there's a reason you're applying to this job that you're so passionate about it, or if there is something that has really sparked your interest in it, the cover letter is your opportunity to briefly explain that. We have a lot of healthcare majors here on our university, and a lot of times there are people who got into these majors because they had a family member who had health issues and they saw one of these professionals make a profound difference in this person's life. So in their cover letter, I tell them not to go into too much detail. Don't say my great aunt had this diagnosis. No, but you can say, you know, I have witnessed firsthand the impact that a compassionate healthcare professional can have on someone's life, specifically in this kind of role. And that has really given me a passion to want to do this for someone else or somebody else's family member. You can't say that in a resume, in a resume, but in the cover letter, you absolutely can. Now, that would be a compliment to the other things that you would touch on that was mentioned earlier, as far as briefly, these are my experiences, this is my skill, this is where my interest is. But if you can add that little extra oomph that maybe somebody else doesn't have, there's where the real value in the cover letter is. But again, if you're going to write it, grammar, please, grammar and spelling and punctuation, be on top of it. If you know that is not your strong suit, I want you to have 2 or 3 people look at it before you submit it, not just one. If you don't know the difference between there, and there, or two, and two, and please have someone look over these letters for you. But yeah, cover letters, take advantage. Again, there are plenty of resources out there, but it is a great opportunity that not many people take advantage of because they're not sure how. But if you learn how to write an effective cover letter, it is a great tool to have in your toolbox.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think cover letters give you a chance to be a little more personal and share why you really want the position, where the resume is showing how you're qualified for that job. Your cover letter can let you share a little more why. Oh, I love these timed lights. These motion lights are awesome. Sorry about that. Let's move on to interview. We are getting to about 9:45, so we'll keep time in mind. But I do want to make sure that we touch on the interview process as well. Just thinking about an interview, what are some things that students should do before they even go in for the interview? So they've submitted their resume and cover letter, they've been selected, they've had a phone interview, now it's time for their in-person interview. What are some things that the students should do in preparation before they even go in or step foot in the door for that interview? And we'll start with Melissa.
So I would encourage students to come up with about 3 or 4 scenarios or situations. And what I mean is think about, like, maybe you were on the job and you were working customer service at a retail location and you had an angry customer. How did you get through that situation? How did you troubleshoot? What was the end result? Or another scenario, maybe you were a part of a large planning committee for a large, career fair. Maybe you were a part of that career fair. How did you execute it from start to finish? Pull on those strengths, think of those scenarios, because when you're answering these questions, you're going to have to give examples. And those are great examples you can pull from. So that's why I say 3 to 4 scenarios, situations, projects you've worked on. Remember those, and remember from start to finish, issues, successes, and your result. The employer is going to want to know at the end of your interview, what can she or he do, and so I really think doing that is important. And I think as the candidate, it's extremely important to practice, maybe sit down with someone and come up with some questions and Google search some questions. I know Indeed has some great questions out there. Talk to yourself in the shower. Like, you have to be comfortable talking about yourself in front of the hiring manager so that they get a very good picture of what you can bring to them. So those are just some of my few helpful tips when interviewing.
Thank you, Melissa. Judy, what advice would you give to students who are preparing for an interview?
First of all, I think you need to dress appropriate. No short skirts, no shorts, no t-shirts that have some saying on the front. People aren't looking for that. Look in your teeth. Make sure zippers are zipped, because you can never recover from having an unzipped zipper. And it seems very basic, but I always tell people, check yourself in the car before you walk in. Say hi to every person you meet, from the security person to the receptionist. You shake hands, you say your name. Those are basic interview skills, but practicing interviewing, practice with your mother, your best friend, and be able to talk about yourself, because when we're interviewing, we don't want to do the talking. I want to hear from you. I want to hear about your skills. I want to hear why you're a good person, why you're going to fit in here. Are you going to be on time? I mean, there are simple things that you can answer. Yes, I'm a timely person. I don't have plans to take vacation in the next 3 months. And those are things we want to know. You're going to show up every day and be on time. But practice, practice, practice. And always come and be informed about the company or where you're interviewing. Look at their website. Look at who's the director. Just do some minimal research before you go in, because it is really helpful to say, wow, you have 6,000 employees. They're worldwide. This is really interesting field for me, because I can see chances for promotion and to move up and stay with your company. People, what I found in nowadays, move a lot in jobs. And during my course and my tenure, we stayed at jobs 10, 15 years. I worked in the same field for 40 years. So it is different. People want someone who's going to be committed and going, okay, I'm going to train you, I will hire you, but are you going to leave me in 2 months? So those are some just quick interview tips that I have.
Very good tips. And I like that you touched on doing a little bit of research beforehand, because I think it's important to see almost also what the organization's values are and make sure that they align with yours. And that's also something that you could bring up in the interview. I saw this on your website and this is how I'm very passionate about this, or I think that this is really important in the workplace. And that's a way that you can bring up something to that employer. I also think having a question, having something that you're going to ask them as the interviewee that you are asking of the company that's interviewing you. And it's not how much money am I going to make? Really do your research and have a question that's a good question, because I think that interviewers enjoy when the interviewee is asking a question about the business, and it shows again that you've done your research. Josh, what tips do you have for preparing for an interview?
Well, that's all great advice, and I agree. And to piggyback off that, when people say research the company, it's not so that you can do a book report. It's not that you can be like, your company was founded in 1953 and your first CEO was this person. And that's not why you want to research. To everybody else's point here, do the research. And if something based on your research is connecting with you that makes you feel like I would be a great fit in this company, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for things about their company where you can explain to them why you would add value, why you would be a fit for their culture, for their mission, things like that. So that's the kind of research we're talking about. More than that, obviously practice answering the basic questions that tend to pop up in any interview. And that's the tell me about yourself, the strengths, the weaknesses, the conflict, situational, why should I hire you, things like that. But when you practice them, don't write yourself a script. One of the biggest things that can derail an interview very quickly is when someone is trying so hard to be perfect that they just completely get out of their own head. So when you do practice at home, don't write a script, just practice having a normal conversation with somebody. Whether that's, somebody you're close with, a friend that will take this seriously, a family member, somebody who works at your school, do that practice, especially with tell me about yourself. And everything you're saying should show value for the job and the company that you're applying or interviewing with, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But that's what I would say. It's practice, 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 but don't become rehearsed. And when you get in the interview, forget it. It will come to you naturally. Just don't try too hard. So really, it's just practice. What do I want to say as opposed to trying to write a script? Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good points. We are down to about 10 minutes left in the conversation. But I do want to go, so we've talked about the prep part. So now, what are some tips for the actual interview? Obviously, students, you hear all the time, dress professionally. So, you know, make sure that you look professional. Even if the job that you're going for is not a professional job, you're going to have a specific uniform that you have to wear or a jumpsuit, but for your interview, look professional. And then also, I think making sure that you look nice. So your hair's done, you've brushed your teeth, and being on time. Students, again, something you hear, make sure you're on time and even early. I would say be there early so that you can navigate the parking situation if that's an issue, or if you have to walk across a campus to get to a room, or if you have to check in with a receptionist first. You want to make sure that you give yourself ample time to figure out what the situation is. I have a friend that will even drive to a location the night before to make sure that she has viewed everything to see what it's going to look like and that she's prepared in the morning when she does go in for her interview. So what are some things during the interview that students can do to help themselves be the most successful? Let's start with Josh.
Thank you. So first thing I would say, and it was kind of mentioned earlier, on the day of the interview, as soon as you leave your house for the interview, please understand that every person you come in contact with is an interviewer. If somebody cuts you off on the road, let it go, smile, because that could be your interviewer that you're about to head and go meet, right? The front desk person, wherever you're interviewing, better be a big fan of you, because I promise you, after you leave the interviewer looks at the front desk person and goes, so what do you think? And if you were rude to them, game over. So please treat everyone like they are the most important interviewer that you are going to come across. It takes 7 seconds for an interviewer to make up their mind on you based on when they first see you. 7 seconds. And I love that, because all that means is smile, shake their hand, introduce yourself. You're already in the running for the job. All right. Beyond that, during the interview, I'll just say a few things because I don't want to take up too much time. Relax. I know that's much easier for me to say than it is to do, but just have a conversation. You know, you're just talking to another person. Stay professional, obviously, but just be yourself and just talk. Keep in mind that no matter what they ask, your answer needs to show value for the job that you're applying for. So tell me about yourself scares people. Tell me about yourself is just tell me a little bit about who you are and what you're bringing to this company. So everything you're saying should show value, right? Any negative questions, I get those are scary. Weaknesses, conflicts. They're not asking, what are you bad at? They're not asking to tell about a bad time or a bad situation. They're saying, show us that you know how to handle these situations. Weakness is not what are you bad at? It's show me that you realize you're not perfect and you've actually taken the initiative to get better at something. Beyond that, just again, be yourself, relax, keep the answers focused on the job that you're applying to, and don't be so hard on yourself. Just go in there, have that conversation, understand that the interviewer, a good interviewer, will help you out. So if you're struggling, they'll rephrase the question. Don't be afraid to ask for clarification, but just go in there and do your best and show them who you are and what you bring. And I think you'll go a long way by doing that. I don't want to take up too much time. I can go on forever, so I'm just going to stop.
And I will go ahead and share your YouTube channel as well. Josh has many videos with different interview tips. So this is an awesome resource. Students, when you have more time, you can always check that out. Melissa.
I'll also say real quick, if you don't mind, just it's also on Instagram and Facebook as well. But let me make it clear, I don't care about likes. I don't care about follows. I don't need any of that. We just put that out there. So if you ever need it, they're 1 to 2 minute videos for you on how to answer questions, how to approach the interview. So please take advantage as much as you want.
And thank you so much for providing that for us, Josh. These are awesome videos. Melissa, what are some tips and tricks for during the interview? Things that you've had experience with.
I'm big on eye contact. You know, when you come in the room, I think it's important to shake people's hands, and I like firm handshakes. And I feel like when you're answering questions, I think eye contact is huge. It shows that you're engaged. If your eyes are wandering, I'm not getting a good feel. Like I want to know this person's comfortable, even though it is a nervous setting. Yes. It is appropriate to bring resumes, if extra resumes, just in case the employers would like them sitting at the table, have them in front of them. But I just want to say, similar to what Josh said, it is okay as these young, students are in high school, if they have to say, can you please repeat the question for me again? They can ask that question. It's completely normal. I get it all the time in interviews. All right. It may just give them a little bit more time to think of what they want to say, or if they just needed to clarification of what was really being asked. So please don't think it's a negative, thing if you have to ask them to rephrase or ask the question over again. Again, eye contact, firm handshakes, be transparent, and just be yourself.
Thank you, Melissa. And Judy, tips for during.
I agree with what both Josh and Melissa said. Eye contact is huge. Shaking a hand in a firm handshake, but not something that's going to squeeze my hand off. And also, sometimes when we are trying to figure out an answer and how we want to answer it, repeating back the question and making sure that's a nice way to clarify it. So you want to know about myself. And so a dramatic pause is okay. We don't have to fill in every void of time. And just to take 5 seconds to go, okay, relax. What am I going to say? Okay, go. And I think that's just really helpful in life also, to be able to just take those 5 seconds to regroup. And I have to say, some interviewers are really not fair, and they ask questions. I can tell you, I had an interview once, and the question was, how are M&Ms made? And there was no right or wrong answer, and how are they polished? And what I read off the internet, that the person who got this job was from a firm that was for creative director. And he said that there was magic fairies who polished the outside shell. And I thought that was rather silly at the time, but it was mostly a thinking on your feet. What could you come up with immediately? And sometimes just saying, I don't know, is an acceptable answer.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we are getting down to the end here. So thank you so much to all of our panelists. Thanks for taking an hour out of your time to share some of your expertise with our students. The one last thing that we'll close with is I want to go around and have each of you share a tip or something that if you could go back now and talk to your teenage self. So with all of the years of experience that you've had, what is something that you would tell your teenage self? It can be related to resumes and interviews, but it could also just be a life lesson overall for our students. So we'll start with Judy.
This is pretty easy for me because I was a very serious student. I should have just relaxed more and just enjoy life and enjoy the moment. I was always looking, oh gosh, I can hardly wait till I'm 21. I can hardly wait till I'm 25, and I want my own place, and I don't want to have mom's rules. And I look back at it now, I'm going, wow, that was some of the best times of my life, was high school. And you can really enjoy it. And I wish I had stopped to smell the roses a little more.
Thank you. Melissa.
I was always very nervous in front of people. I may not have appeared nervous, but I was nervous and I didn't feel like I had the confidence. So I wish I could go back and just tell myself to also, kind of what Judy said, just relax, like be in the moment, be present, but also know that, we do learn from our mistakes. So if we were younger and in an interview, or if we were applying for jobs and we failed, it's okay. Okay, those are all learning experiences. So I guess to just, have confidence, not be so hard on myself, and know that everything's going to be okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Josh, we'll finish with you.
I guess I would tell myself, as well as just anybody else really, is just be a good person. I know that sounds really simple and kind of silly, but be a good person. Help people out that need help. Want to grow, want to be better. Because I promise you, those relationships and who you form yourself to be now will follow you throughout the rest of your life. So just be a decent person who wants to help people, who builds relationships. I remember certain people from high school that to this day, I'm like, I love that person. I remember them, and on the flip side too. So it's never too late to start being a better version of yourself, and just strive to be that and lift others up with you, and you'll go far.
That's a great note for us to end on. So thank you all so much for being here again. I will go ahead and put the Adult and Career Ed YouTube link in the chat, and this recording will be uploaded within the next couple of days. So thank you for a wonderful season, season 2. This was the final episode, and it was wonderful to end it with the 3 of you. So thank you all so much for being here. And students, I hope you have a great summer. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks,
Bye.
Kelly. You have a good one, okay?
You
It's
too.
nice meeting both of you also.
Yes, nice meeting you, Judy.